Welcome to One Man's Tracks, the secondhand music channel. I'm excited today to talk to you about an old school West Coast hip-hop legend. It's Anthony Terrell Smith, or better known as Tone Loc. He was born in LA in 1966, and he would rap with the AAA rap crew in high school, as well as becoming affiliated with the Crips around that time. But he was in the right place at the right time in 1987, when Delicious Vinyl was looking to get its start, and they needed a rapper to kind of front their first releases. So his deep, gravelly voice and his easygoing, fun-loving style was exactly the ticket that company needed to get its feet off the ground. And get it off the ground, these guys certainly did, surrounding Tone with a talented group of engineers, producers, and writers, enabling him to provide the sensual and smooth utterances that would stick all these great elements together and make for the second ever hip-hop album to top the Billboard 200 with this. His double platinum debut, released in January of 1989, produced by Matt Dyke, Michael Ross, as well as the Dust Brothers, and including Beastie's engineer Mario Caldato Jr. This is Tone Loc's Loc-ed After Dark. An awesome amalgamation of influences and ideas from popular culture and other artists, down to the album art itself being a reference to A New Perspective by Donald Byrd. While it may not be the most groundbreaking or progressive hip-hop album of 1989, there's no denying its impact was still tremendous, with worldwide hits like Wild Thing and Funky Cold Medina helping to widen the lanes of rock rap and pop rap crossovers, as well as just helping to reframe people's perspective on the genre in general. While its style may be a little dated and probably influenced some really corny radio rap hits that you're really not that fond of, I still find a lot of these cuts to have funky grooves and killer instrumentals that are great to jam to. Loc has a great sense of humor and this contradictory, gritty, smooth tone that when you pair it alongside his co-writer Young MC with these rugged, pilfered beats by his producers, it makes for this engaging 51 minutes of feel-good throwback jams. Loc-ed After Dark is an album that was worth trying for me simply for the context and its legacy. The fact that I can still groove along to it 33 years later is just an added bonus for me. When did you first learn about Tone Loc? What was it like hearing him back in the day? Did you listen to this album on tape? Leave me a comment down below while I take on its classic cuts. Starting out, stepping onto the scene, it's a smoky opening cut, the funky On Fire. They turn up the heat with this introductory remix that warms the listener up for the party start and rap rocker Wild Thing. It was inspired by a line said by Fab Five Freddy in the Spike Lee movie Do the Right Thing, and influenced by the success of Run DMC. This incorporates a Van Halen riff that they got for an unconsulted fee that ended up turning into a lawsuit that had them turn over $150,000 after this single went on to sell over 2 million copies. It was a huge hit, but I feel like it's really basic and dry, and it didn't age nearly as well as pretty much all the others on here. My point is made by the instrumental on the title track that just funks so damn hard. It's got these tasty textures. It's a braggadocious battle rapper that's not so much antagonistic as just this hardcore warning to not step to the LOC, especially if it's after dark. I Got It Going On is then this album's kind of unsung third single that still charted, but boy does it not have it going on anymore. It's really flat instrumentally and just probably the most dated and my least favorite on the album. It's totally redundant, with its sentiment being almost identical to the far more convincing Loc-ed After Dark. The piano sample, along with the way that Tone jumps onto the beat at the beginning of Cutting Rhythms, reminds me a lot of Tyler, the Creator. Dark, raspy, and flowing along so smoothly. I love the mood here and the fact that Loc is crediting his DJs. It's an under-celebrated top track that I guess just isn't in your face enough to have been another hitter. Now let's get into Funky Cold Medina. It's a much better rock rap track in my opinion out of the big singles, taking guitars this time from Foreigner, drums from Funkadelic, still staying sexy but with more humor and misfortune this time around. It might at first sound like it's this Cosby-esque kind of drink additive, but it's just supposed to be a fun mixed drink with this aphrodisiac-like effect. It is about as basic as these tracks get, but at least it's way catchier and a lot more fun than Wild Thing in my opinion. The Dust Brothers then bring it once again with a nice, full and dynamic beat for Tone to groove on top of with the next episode. It cruises you on steadily towards one of the very first pro-pot anthems on record. It's Chiba Chiba, with Nadia Davenport's excellent guest vocal on the hook here, giving it just that desired effect that it was looking for. I'll bet you over 1,000,000 joints have been smoked to this kickback bumpin' number. I like the song Don't Get Close, but it is still just the second or third best song where Tone boasts about his hardcore reputation. I get that it was pretty commonplace to have songs about this back in the day, but the lack of diversity in the themes across this project does get a little tedious after a while. There's then this kind of low-key, chilled-out, subversive instrumental called Lōc-ed on the Shaw that I find odd that the Dust Brothers didn't produce this particular song, because it reminds me a ton of another project they produced by Tsukiya, the very first album I ever reviewed on this channel. It sounds similar to that, maybe less left field than that, and doesn't really go anywhere once it's kind of fully formed. It might not be totally necessary, but it does provide kind of a cooling off feeling at the ending of this album before we get to the closer. Either way, we're at the end with a goofy song called The Homies. It's another old hip-hop trope, having a song about your crew, and it does border on a skit at times, but thankfully there is a clear musical direction to this. It's guided in some way. It's kind of this fun way to sum up the album and send you off with some good friendly vibes. Loc-ed After Dark played a large role in helping lead hip-hop into the wide world of pop music. Whether you like it or not, without some of these mainstream hits, the acceptance of the genre probably would have been a lot slower. Sure, it could be looked at as a bit corny, maybe a bit too poppy, but it's not nearly the corniest or the poppiest album I've even covered on this channel. It's fun to find out that Loc is very likely a large influence in the Sir Mix-a-Lots and the Candymans, and I just love discovering it this backwards way, because it really does feel like the only way I can, being born after these albums were already out. He made a big splash with this debut album, but his follow-up in 1991, Cool Hand Loc, didn't have quite the same reception, and he's kind of transitioned his career into acting. His last single was for the Ace Ventura movie in 1995, which he played a decent acting role in. He's done a bunch of TV shows, movies, animated shows since then over the past few decades, and he isn't so much making new music, but still puts on shows and plays the hits from time to time, so there's still a chance to see the Wild Thing and Funky Cole Medina performed if you're interested. I'm so stoked to have another little piece of hip-hop history to add to my meager collection. I'd love to add some more old school tapes and discs to fill in some of the more essential gaps in my knowledge, so please let me know some more 80s hip-hop artists to look out for. Leave me a comment about Tony Smith and your favorite artist that he influenced. Like the video and subscribe for next week's Erykah Badu review. I'm jumping from the old to the new, and you're not gonna wanna miss it. Stay away from that Funky Cole Medina and just pass over that Chiba Chiba, baby. Alright, this is getting a little too hot. We're moving on to the next episode.